originally proposed a 20% cut in human services. The Senate came back with a 10% cut. Do you believe you'll hold to that, or are you willing to restore more, given there's more revenue to deal with right now?
Based upon the discussions that we're having, I don't see it going below the 10% cut at this point. And all the more reason why the ladies and gentlemen behind me in the counties need to have the flexibility. I want to reiterate what was said here by a couple of the speakers, though, because I know there's a fear, apprehension, whatever the word may be, that these individuals and their counterparts across the state would fund some programs to the detriment of other programs. And they want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Well, first off, it was said by Christian that these are public documents that will be out there that have to be voted on in public. I think that's important to remember. And that the Department of Welfare, who is the one that is responsible to make sure that these programs are appropriate, and the funding goes to the right places, will be the overseer of that based upon the knowledge that they receive. So when we're having to reduce, because we don't have all the money back that we'd like to have, a 10% reduction, giving them the management tool with a little bit of oversight from Harrisburg is a lot better than Harrisburg saying, here are the categories, here are 7 categories, you spend it there and you can't move it. That's really what it comes down to.
Governor, is there a precedent?
You got to tell me who you are.
I'm Patty Urick, with freelance writer for NAMI Pennsylvania and NAMI National.
Okay.
Is there a precedent for block grants for mental health and community health and social services in another state?
I'm going to turn to Gary on that.
Are you asking about a state-funded block
asking
grant?
About the efficiency of a block grant proposal. Has it been tested in another state?
We have the federal community mental health block grant, which the state receives money from Washington. We also have numerous examples of block grants which affect needy families. For example, the TANF block grant, temporary assistance to needy families, the community services block grant, which comes from Washington. In all cases, they have all worked effectively. So there hasn't been any example of a block grant, whether delivered from Washington, or at least to my knowledge, from a state down to locality, that has not worked effectively. I don't know about everything in every state, but at least from the federal level down to state government.
And it's a two-part question, actually. I'm sorry I didn't mention that
Well,
earlier.
let me get some other people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is there, a lot of you have talked about the efficiency of a block grant. Is there any way to quantify it? Will such efficiency, for example, offset a 10% cut?
I don't think the efficiency is going to offset a 10% cut. I'm going to say that right off the top of my head, and I'll turn around. Do you think it's going to offset a 10% cut? No. Okay. But it is going to offset a portion of that cut. If you can imagine the paperwork that comes in, they're all laughing behind me. Imagine the paperwork that comes in on 7 different programs, 7 different categories. So there will be efficiencies there. You know, I can tell you this is what the governors are asking the federal government to give us more in the Medicaid. We've been asking now for a year and a half, give it to us in a block grant so that we can manage it to get out there. And so far the administration has not decided to do that. I'm proud to see these men and women behind us understand that we're going to make them responsible. They have to manage, and they're going to do it as efficiently as they possibly can, because the more efficiently you can do it, limited resources, you're going to be able, that's what you want to get it down to the services, to the people that you need to get it down to.
If not 10, is there any way to quantify it? Is it
I think right now I couldn't quantify it for you. I'll ask them to come back to you if we have a quantification number for you. Other questions?
As far as when they could enact it, you can enact it immediately or over a period of 3 years. Do you have a gauge yet of who's going to enact it immediately, and what is immediately? Like, when would that be?
Well, immediately would be going into the next fiscal year, okay, because that's where this money is based on, starting July 1. I think some of the larger counties are prepared to do it. I'm going to go out on a limb. Bucks County?
Whatever you say, Governor.
Only because the Lieutenant Governor's here. I mean, we have been talking to some of the counties. I think that some of the larger counties with bigger offices might be in a position to implement it more quickly than maybe some of the smaller counties. On the other hand, some of the smaller counties might be able to do it more efficiently at the same time because they just have a smaller organization to deal with. Okay? I got to get other people first.
I couldn't see.
Governor, I know you spoke with the early show this morning, but for us local guys here, can you explain to us why
Let's stay on
can you
this.
explain to us why the prosecution took 2 years in the Jerry Sandusky case?
I just said, let's stay on this. We'll answer those questions when we're done. Okay?
Governor, what level of resistance are you facing in the legislature that you hope to affect with this show of support?
Well, I'm going to look at Senator Ward. I think this passed the Senate already, correct? So it's in the House. We need to get 102 votes in the House, and that's what we're working on. That's why these ladies and gentlemen are here. They'll be out talking to members of the House and trying to convince them that this is a good idea, that we take the money that we have here in Harrisburg, we send it out to the counties, and let the counties manage it rather than us dictate that these have to stay in these separate silos. John?
Governor, a 10% cut seems to suggest inevitably that some people will lose services or access to services. Have you quantified how many people that would be?
I think it's hard to quantify because if you look at the counties, each one is going to do it a little bit differently.
How about Mr. Hill, perhaps from CCAP, can you quantify it or somebody?
It's different for every.
Go ahead, Christian.
Commissioner Christian Leinbach, our counties are so dramatically different from one another. Berks County, 5th largest city in the Commonwealth. Tioga County, which I know is ready to go 100% July 1st. And therefore, you cannot quantify the cost savings or even the need. And that is one of the primary reasons the block grant is so desperately needed. In our county, and George Kavari is here, our head of CYS, each year has 1 or 2 categoricals that he has money that he doesn't need and has other categoricals that ran out of money before the end of the year. This gives us flexibility. And that's what it's about. There are 2 debates here. One has to do with the budget and the economy that we're in. We're focused on block grants. Give us the tools at the county level to have the flexibility to serve the needs of our people. And the needs in Berks are very different than most of the 66 other counties in the Commonwealth.
So I'm sorry, Mr. Leinbach, you can't say how many people might lose services at all?
It's not a question of how many people will lose services. It's possible that none. It's possible that some may, but that's not the focus. The focus is how do we take a current system that doesn't serve people well because we don't have the flexibility and give our professionals, our head of CYS, the ability to help people that currently are not being served because a categorical runs out of money virtually every single year. Why don't we focus on the people that currently are being cut out of the system instead of what might happen in the future?
This was a follow-up for Christian.
Keep going.
Do you have any idea how many people in your county are denied services because categoricals run out of funding?
I'd have to look, and afterwards, and where's George Kavari? Here he is in the back. I would encourage you to talk to George. George is also president of PCYA. He has a lot of experience in this area, and that goes to the heart of who we go to when we make decisions on block granting. I'm not going to my experience. I'm going to the experience of our professionals. George Kavari is one of them. And George has been at the table with our Secretary Alexander, along with a number of other commissioners and professionals helping to put this together.
My name's Scott Martin, Lancaster County. Going back to how you quantify it, one thing that makes it very difficult to quantify, and I'm sure everyone up here would agree, the system that we operate under now, and I've worked in human services a very long time, since the mid-90s, is a spend it or lose it type of mentality. So no matter what your needs may have been in your home community, you rushed, whether it was to fill positions of caseworkers or whatnot, depending on what that dollar amount was. It wasn't truly based on individuals. And I just wanted to build on the fact that when you talk in terms of quantifying how many people you're going to be able to help, I also look at it, how many people am I going to be able to help wholly? You know, you see, with this kind of flexibility, similar to what we had in the Human Service Development Fund, I can tell you two big things that we were able to do, but not completely do. We're able to fund our 10-year plan to end homelessness in Lancaster County, and we're able to fund our reentry management organization, helping prisoners transition better into the community. And what happened was, let's say you have people with dual diagnosis, whether they had mental health issues, they had DNA issues. What I often would find is our DNA pod.
DNA. Explain.
Oh, drug and alcohol, sorry. A lot of acronyms in
Not
county work.
DNA.
Right. You know, what we found is a lot of the Act 152 funds, that would be pretty tight. We'd be able to meet some of their mental health needs, but we wouldn't be able to meet their drug and alcohol needs. And if you're not able to really help with complete services around one person, more than likely you may fail with that person, even if you had housing before or great mental health services. So I think this local flexibility gives us more opportunities to completely serve individuals as a whole in all their needs.
I've been hearing on the phase-in program, I've been hearing.
On the what?
On the phase-in, is it 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years? I've been hearing different numbers.
I don't have the bill here in front of me. Here.
It's 3 years.
That's early June, it was 2 years. That's a change, right, then?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Legislation is very flexible this week.
So 3 years, okay.
What if you don't get the order?
Tell me who you are.
Chris Thomas, that capital.
Okay, I keep forgetting, I'm sorry. I'm used to that really tall, bald-head guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty tall. What if you don't get the 102 votes this week? Does this,
Well, we don't
does
get the
this
102 votes. If we don't get the 102 votes, then the budget's going to go through. And if it is a 10% reduction, they will get the 10% reduction. And I suspect that means a 10% reduction across the board in the different categories, and they won't have the flexibility to move it. Scott, I think you're the one that mentioned the spend it or lose it. Okay, that I've seen in government for a long time. You see that in the federal government. When I was U.S. attorney, you got a budget. And if you didn't spend everything the next year, your budget was smaller. So you went out and spent everything. Well, I ended up turning back 1 year, I think it was, and my budget went smaller. Well, you can't blame them for not making sure that you spend everything, so hopefully you get the same thing that year or better. Well, what we're doing is saying, here's the money we have, we're sending it to you, you manage it as you need it across the board. Because, as I tell a lot of people, we have an infinite amount of requests for funds. I understand that. But we have a finite amount of resources. And so if we're going to have that finite amount of resources, let's manage it rather than just spend it to spend it. One more question on this in the back.
What's your response to the legal argument that having the allocation done by counties as opposed to the state opens that up to new liabilities under ADA and RA that the state was immune from?
Okay, first off, who were?
Melissa Daniels, Pennsylvania Independent.
Okay, I don't have the answer to that. I've not looked at that. We'll have one of our legal people. You got Gary? Okay, Gary. Sorry about that.
That's right, excuse me. We've had our legal experts look at it in the department, and we've found that that's not the case. So we can talk to you later about that, get in more depth about it, but.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. For those of all, I'll stay for a little bit. If you have questions, if you don't, you can leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.